meeting in there. I went back to my little office. When I walked by, I said, oh, I guess that's not. Didn't mean to be antisocial.
Joel, I'm going to sit over on this side. How are you? Oh, you made it today.
Yeah.
Great to see you. So thanks for coming.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, I'll be. Andy's here.
I'm off doing my own. Sorry.
Yeah, I was looking for you. Good to see you. I don't see the shoes yet. You still looking?
Yeah, I'm gonna put it on you. On you. Glad you love it. Andy, Joel. Good to see you, Joel.
This is actually my husband. He's
Oh,
a
nice to
professor
meet you.
here. Andy's with Westfield.
I've heard great things from you and everyone else here.
Yeah, we enjoyed coming up.
Yeah, well,
Great program.
You're such a supporter of things for our students.
It's all about it is. It is. Great connection.
So, yeah, we were waiting for you.
Thanks. Thanks, Liz.
Sorry.
Hi there. My apologies.
What's the camera on that? Fine. Just for you.
I mean, nice to meet you.
Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon, panel of awesome employer partners. Very nice to see you here. Welcome to our fifth and final day of Career Conversations. It's something new we tried this semester, so we're really glad you're here. So just to get us going, it's always nice to know who's in the room. So I am going to ask our employers, we have the blessing and the challenge of having 7 of you here today. So relative to managing time, if you could, as you introduce yourselves, your name, where you work, what you do, and how about what we asked in preparation, what is one piece of advice you'd give a student? And that's something to start to chew on. So, and then I'll actually ask each of you just to say your name. And when you have a question, if you could stand up and tell the employers who you are and then ask your question. There's a fan going, so it's also a little bit loud. Okay? Please.
Hi everyone, I'm Hillary Hilo. I work at Progressive Insurance. I'm an IT manager in our Enterprise Project Management Office. I'm responsible for some SaaS vendor implementations, POCs, data migrations. And prior to joining the PMO, I was in internal and external accounting roles, so I'm a CPA by trade. And I'm a proud CSU graduate. I got my undergrad and master's here at CSU, so happy to always be back. And I'm also a member of the Accounting Advisory at Cleveland State. Piece of advice for the students here, and myself too, I think it's always good to remind yourself, don't be afraid to fail. We always talk about at Progressive, the concept of failing forward and learning from those failures. So where are you making corrections and how are you doing that throughout your career is really important.
Hi everybody, my name is Andy Carver. I work for a company called Westfield. We're a property and casualty insurance company based out of Medina County, but we have operations across the United States. Within the insurance industry here with Progressive, I think this is kind of indicative of how the industry views talent. We need a lot of young talent joining our industry. So we can sit here as friendly competitors and say we're happy to be here. Yeah, right. But no, I started as an intern with Westfield. I transitioned into a formal training program, started down the insurance path. So I'm an underwriter by trade. In 2012, I pivoted into the college recruiting space. Just wanted to share the good word about the industry, share a little bit more about Westfield with college students, and then just recently, within the last 18 months, I picked up all of our IT hiring as well. So great opportunity to connect with CSU students. While I'm not an alum, love coming up here. A little piece of advice for you is try everything out and go in with the mentality that it's okay to find things that you don't like to do, because then you can always kind of pivot and try something else on. I feel like I'm still in that pursuit in some areas of my life, and that's okay. So it's okay to not like something and recognize you don't like something. Just always be flipping that and trying to find something that you are passionate about.
Hi everyone, I'm Elizabeth Ajadi. I work at Medical Mutual, and I'm an alum of Cleveland State. I did my undergrad here. I am currently consulting analyst, and I didn't start in this role. I started as an intern, just like you. Moved from internship, worked for a year and a half as an intern while I was a senior here, and moved into risk adjustment, tried different things just to learn the world of health insurance and to understand it more. And every role that I've been in since my internship has helped me, has propelled me into the current position that I'm in. I find that I've learned something from every position that has applied in every new role that I've been in. So for me, advice is that maintain relationships. A lot of people would get a business card and just forget it, or add a connection on LinkedIn and just forget it. Maintain that relationship, because that's how I've gotten any role that I've been in. Just keep it going and don't take it for granted.
Sound familiar?
My name is Erich Raeder. I'm the Talent Acquisition Manager with Ohio Guidestone. We are a nonprofit behavioral health service provider. We're actually based in Berea, but we have locations throughout the state. We do everything from community-based counseling services to school-based counselors. We do foster care and adoption services. How I got there, I actually started as way back when, as a recruiter in the tire industry, which is, it wasn't my favorite thing to do, but I did it a long time and I was good at it. My heart was actually in health and human services. In college, I wanted to be a social worker, and as things would have it, I ended up in talent acquisition. I had heard that Ohio Guidestone was growing, and they had a need for a recruitment team. And 7 years later, I'm still here. So it's nice to do what I love for an agency I really believe in. So with that, I'll pass.
My name is Megan Grimm. I'm with University Hospitals. I have been with them for actually will be 9 years next month. And prior to that, I was actually in banking for about 12 years, all in the human resource sector. And my message is, when I go out, a lot of people feel like healthcare, we only have roles for nurses or therapists and various roles. Obviously, I'm in HR. There is finance need. There is audit need. We have needs for attorneys. So there's a lot of different avenues that you can look at from a healthcare perspective. And kind of like Guidestone, it is really nice that what you are doing is impacting patients. Being that I'm in the corporate sector, it is nice we brought in a patient in one of my last meetings to remind us, because sometimes we get lost in the day-to-day work. And so as you look at organizations, whether it be customer service and you're impacting someone and helping them out, or like insurance, maybe you're saving them money or something, it could be anything. But recognize that we all have business customers, and my advice is to know that what you are doing means something for your organization and to someone, whoever you're touching.
Hi everyone, I'm Olivia Forte. I am the campus recruiter with BDO. For those of you who aren't familiar with financial services, we are a financial services firm. We are number 5 in the world. We provide accounting in terms of audit, tax, and advisory services for a vast variety of clients in the Cleveland area, all over the U.S. and globally as well, in various industries. I mean, from real estate all the way to manufacturing. I am new to my role. I just became the campus recruiting a senior here 8 months ago. Prior to being a campus recruiter, I actually started out as an intern at a Big 4 accounting firm in the audit department and worked my way up close to manager. My opportunity to join the HR side of things was provided to me by an offer, and it was just something that I followed my gut, and I absolutely love it. I'm not an alum here, but I spend a ton of time here on campus recruiting students for our internship programs. We're currently recruiting for 2021 and leadership opportunities, so I'm just going to have to use this for a minute to do my speech. But other than that, I guess my one piece of advice to students would be quantity or quality over quantity. You can talk to hundreds of people and forget those conversations, forget those emails, forget those business cards that you collect. But it's really the quality of that conversation that you're having. Always remember something specific. You'll never know who you will run into in the future and where you can end up. So always think about the quality of the conversation and the quality of the advice that you're receiving and giving and all of those kinds of things.
I'm John Leesky. I manage operational risk for the retail lending bank. And before moving into banking, I actually worked in talk radio after completing my economics degree at Ohio State. So definitely don't be afraid to pivot careers. Definitely be open to new opportunities and kind of willing to take that leap of faith into something new if the opportunity seems right. Kind of looking at the business landscape these days, don't underestimate how important Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Excel are to your career growth. A lot of times it's how you can convey your message more so than what you're trying to say. So being able to create a crisp deliverable will definitely make your message more noticed and more compelling. And that was, I think, one thing that really surprised me in the professional world, where I'll be spending half my time building PowerPoint decks. So it's not glamorous, but it's definitely a skill that is something you can learn on your own. You can use Google, you can use YouTube, but it's really a great way to get noticed early on in your career.
That's teeing me up for a perfect next question, but I would like to know about the other half of the room, otherwise I'll feel really uneven. If you could just tell us who you are, and just tell us who you are.
Hello everyone, my name is Sahil Faiz, and I'm the third year pre-medical student at CSU.
Great, that's actually perfect. Thank you. And way to walk right in on time. If you could just tell us your name and maybe what you're studying or where you work.
I'm Kyle Ray, I'm an accounting major, junior year, currently a full-time student.
Great.
Hi, I'm Mikhail Thomas. This is my last year at CSU in Carver, chemistry.
Chemistry.
Hello, I'm Abdullah Hamdan, and I am a computer science major and a graphic design major, currently in my sophomore year.
Computer science and
Yes.
graphic design?
Right.
Thank you.
How you guys doing? It's an honor being here with you guys. My name's Pete, and I actually graduated here in 2017 in May, and I received my bachelor's in health science with a focus in pre-physical therapy. That's basically it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Altamir Mango. I'm from Finland, and I'm here my first year in semester.
I'm Joel Leesky. I'm a professor of political science here at the university, and I'm a proud father of Josh.
State, studying Black Studies and History, also serving my nearly second year as a career advisor in career services.
Lynn Leon, career specialist here in career services. Welcome everyone. Thank you panel for being here. And I liaison to the College of Business and College of Engineering.
My name is Boya. I am in the final year of the master's program for nonprofit administration and commercial.
My name is Maggie Peters. I'm not currently a student, but I work for Nordstrom as a customer service manager.
My name is Glenn Meridores. I'm currently senior marketing major.
Hello everyone, my name is Tanya Wong. I'm a graduate student studying computer science, and I currently intern at Mutual and working at career services.
Thank you. So, John, your diversity of experience speaks to the importance of what we call transferable skills, right? So one of the things that's important for us to communicate to students and for students to understand is that, yes, your major as an important place to start and as a certain pool of knowledge that you have is important, and it does not dictate what you will do for the rest of your life, right? So I would love to hear from the panel. Transferable skills. So you were in talk radio, you studied economics at Ohio State, you're now at PNC, any other positions that you've had. Would you each name maybe 2 or 3 skills that have carried you through your career path?
Yeah, I can take that one and kick it off. I would say like the soft skills are sometimes more important than like the hard skills of what you're learning in college. So, took I think 3 accounting courses, probably 3 finance courses, and I feel like, that knowledge is important, but I think it's how you communicate with others, how you can work as a team. I think those are the type of questions that interviewers really want to know your answer to is, do you work well with others? Talk me through a situation where conflict came up and, how you worked around that. So I would say, the soft skills to me are, very transferable from one job to another, and I think they're definitely something employers look for.
Who else would like to talk about skills that have carried you through? Yes.
I looked at my hand raiser. I can't stop it. Catholic schools for 12 years. So right, at Progressive, when we interview folks for positions, we look for certain traits of our candidates, right? And we look for certain skill sets. So when I look to candidates that I'm interviewing for those skill sets, I look at leadership, influence, initiating action, and learning agility are really big pieces that folks who are successful in that end up being really successful in their career. And I feel like your major, your work at Cleveland State is going to get you that first job. It's going to get you that foot in the door, right? It's like an SAT score kind of in a way. Nobody's going to ask you as you progress and move around. But having those skill sets and developing those throughout your career is really going to help you succeed and grow professionally and personally.
I'll jump in. One of the first roles I had out of college, other than a landscaper because I didn't do an internship, so I cut lawns for a summer, but it was a project coordinator role. And it was more or less of just an administrative role. I kept the coffee hot for everyone, essentially. But what I did learn in that role was the fundamentals. And you hear it in high school, you hear it in college, but just organization, time management, and I think most importantly, accountability. Those little things go a long way, and if you have them down pat, you're going to be successful, in my opinion, in any role that you're in. I mean, as long as you know what you're going to do, and you're planned, and you're on time, that's, in my opinion, one of the fundamentals that'll really help you along the way.
Elizabeth, were you going to say something?
Sure. 3 things. I would say 1, maintain a certain level of professionalism, regardless of who you're working with, regardless of who you're communicating with. It's really important if you walk into a room, they want to see that you're serious about what you're about to come discuss, that you're ready to really talk about what, and you know what you're saying. 2, effective communication. Be able to articulate your goals or what you want from someone or what you're looking for. You're assigned something, be able to, in 1 minute, say exactly what you're hoping to do and how it would help that person. And 3, networking again. I can't stress that enough. It's really important. I've worked at Life Mutual for 3.5 years, and this is my 4th role. Not because I'm a jumper, but just because someone reached out to me to say, hey, you have this skill set, or you presented at this meeting, this might be a good fit for you. So.
I'll jump in quickly there. So Elizabeth hit the nail on the head. Effective communication cannot be overstated. So the idea that that's still an opportunity that I have in my career and recognize that I can get better at. So when you're sending out this email to 450 leaders at your organization, what action do you need? What response do you need? When do you need it by? Being clear and concise in how you go about sending that email instead of sending a one-pager shows that group that, okay, you recognize their time's important, you recognize the need that you have, and let's try to blend it too. So I can't overstate what Elizabeth shared there.
And the why does it matter,
Yeah.
right? Why does it matter to the receivers and the senders and the strategic goals of the organization too? That's huge.
Is it connected to anything, or are you just asking me to do something?
Right. Right.
And that can blend to interviewing as well. So somebody asked me, like, how long should my answers be to a behavioral-based interview question? And I'm like, that's not the right question to ask to begin with. So thinking in a linear thought process as you're going through the interview stage, I think is really important.
So I'd actually like to build on Elizabeth's use of the word professionalism. It seems to me, surprised I have learned, it's a controversial term. I don't know if any of you know that. But I am curious, and I'm sure that we have, with 7 people at the table, we may have 7 different interpretations of the word professionalism, or based on what students might think professionalism means. Can you describe in a couple of words what it means to you or what it looks like? What does professionalism look like when it walks in the door? I heard you say something like, let them know you're serious. What does that look like? How can I, as a student, show up and be professional? What does that mean? Megan?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So it is, as mentioned here, several other things have been mentioned, but do your homework about that organization. You might see them in one way, you mentioned you're an international organization and might only think that they're here. You know, just really do your homework so you can walk in and almost share, you know, what? They're going to ask you, why are you interested in this organization? You can then do your elevator speech about the research that you have had. Also walk in there and make sure you have your questions. I'm surprised how few questions I get after the interview process. I'm like, well, you are interviewing that employer as much as we are interviewing you, because you want to make sure it is a good fit. You really do. That sets you up for success in your career. So you need to make sure that you are aware of what's going on, and that also presents a professionalism. Also, don't forget that nice handwritten thank you. I feel like it's a lost art these days with the way email is. So please take a couple moments, make sure you grab a business card. I remember when I was interviewing for my current job, to get it out there right away, I sent an email, you know, just thank you for your time, but then maybe I went above it, maybe I should have done this, but I even went ahead and sent another handwritten note, knowing it would take a little bit longer to get there, but I did. I happened to do both in the interview process. So.
Olivia, I saw your hand raised.
Yeah, I actually still get handwritten notes from students, so if I can see them. I have them hanging in my office, so they don't go right into the garbage, and they are really nice, and I remember you. For me, professionalism is confidence. So walking into an interview, walking up to talk to me or anybody else in my organization, knowing what you want, but also knowing that what you want fits in with what our company offers. You can do your research on a company and tell me everything that you've read on the internet, online, from talking to people. I want to know why that means something to you and why that helps you fit in with our company. So it's putting 2 and 2 together, not just, well, I saw your core values and they're this, this, and this, and this. That's awesome, but I want to know why that's going to make you a great fit for us and why we're going to be a good fit for you. So I would just say confidence and really knowing what you want and being able to articulate it. And also not knowing what you want is not a crime either. That's kind of why you talk to people, and I mean, it's reversed, so you can always say, like, I do want to learn a little bit about your firm or what you guys have to offer. This is what I'm doing right now. This is what I can see myself doing in the future. As you can see, a lot of us have had a lot of different career tracks, and the limit does not exist. You know, we're here and you're starting as a student to really figure out what you want to do with your career. And all of those, you know, individuals that you meet will help you get hopefully to where you think you should be. So,
Andy?
This may be ironic coming from the guy who was the last to sit down at this table, but just show up and be on time.
Put your phone away too.
Yeah, be present, be present, right?
Yeah.
Don't be
or Apple
distracted.
Watches.
Yeah.
I see that a lot too. Like, no phones are out, but then they're like, and I do it too, but.
I think Olivia touched on it a little bit too, but as you interview, like, it's great to know your strengths, and you want to be confident in those strengths, but being self-reflective and understanding where your gaps are and your blind spots and your opportunities, I think it's really good for your professional development and maturation, and also helps the interviewer understand that when you come to the company, you're going to grow. You're going to find opportunities to better yourself, and you're going to help. You're starting to identify that now, even at an early age, early in your career, and just understanding where your opportunities are and what you're doing about bridging those gaps and getting those to your strengths, making those your strengths.
Would you like to add anything in terms of describing professionalism?
Just to be ready, be ready. Research so much that feel like you know that person as you're walking into the room, like they're your friend. I've interviewed at 3 different roles, internal candidate, but I would still scroll in, Google them. I studied communication and journalism, so I dig. So I would read their memos, I would try to get to know who I'm walking into. So when I walk in, I feel calm, and I'm calm. I'm not nervous, or you'll still be nervous, but not too nervous to the point that you just, run over your words. You're comfortable and you can speak clearly and succinctly about what you're trying to achieve and answer their questions and interview them as well. Always interview them as well. They want to hire you. They need you in that role. So use that power. Thank you.
Did you want to add anything, or we can?
Yeah, I'll add. Just real quick, I think everyone said a lot of the things that are really important, but what really stood out for me is just little things go a long way, like you said, the Apple Watch or your phone, put that away. And companies today, we really try, I can just say from our perspective at Ohio Guidestone, we really try to engage with our candidates and with just folks in general. Check out their more than just their LinkedIn. Look at their Instagram. Look at their Facebook. See what their culture's like. That little things like that go a long way in an interview because we're really proud of our culture at Ohio Guidestone. So if I'm interviewing someone and they say, "Wow, I see you guys did the fun run last week. That looks great," that's really going to go a long way. I guess when you talk about professionalism, for us, it's our culture. It's being passionate, being creative, because the roles that we have are pretty challenging. Working with some of the populations that we work with at Ohio Guidestone.
So one of the things I did not hear was appearance or clothing. So I'm curious about that. Anybody want to say anything about that? Hillary, Elizabeth?
Yeah. Progressive is really casual. People wear shorts all year round. I don't have to typically wear a jacket, so this is a little atypical for me. So again, when I think of professionalism associated with progressive, obviously when you interview, wear a suit. And when we interview internally, we wear suits and we dress up, right? That's important. But for us, I have developers who dress very comfy during the day, and as long as they're prepared and present and contributing, that's what I need from my team, and that's what I look for from my team.
That's an important nuance, though, right? Interviewing, it's important to look like this,
and
right?
internally,
regardless of what they wear every day. But as you're interviewing, I heard one of our friends from MTD say you can be all sparkles and curly cues once you're a full-time employee, but you better show up in a suit for that interview. So that's a really important nuance. Right. Elizabeth, I saw your face.
Okay, so I'm Nigerian, and I'm very, very big on appearance. It's part of our culture. You have to come ready, looking perfect, or close to it at least. And so I put so much stock in that. And I work in a customer-facing role, so I cannot go out looking casual. We have a casual work environment, and you can dress down. But if you're in a customer-facing role, it's very, very frowned upon. So come ready, come looking good, come looking clean, I mean, and smell good too.
If I could just piggyback that too, a lot of our roles are community-based, so you're not necessarily in an office from 9 to 5, so, jeans are fine in the field. They're probably preferred. But again, I think that first impression is so important. I can't understand, I mean, it's so important. I look back to my first interview, and, one of the things that my career advisor told me is get a suit. And like I said, at the time, I cut grass, so I didn't have a ton of money, and I remember I bought what I thought was a nice suit at the time from JCPenney's. It was called the Super Suit. It's a real brand. But I still wore a suit, and I as soon as I got my first paycheck, I think I threw the Super Suit away. But I can imagine what it looks like. I don't know if it would fit. Maybe a little snug. But
I'm going to Google Super Suit.
JCPenney's Super Suit. It said it on the tag. I'll never forget it. It came with the whole combo, too. It had a tie and everything. But again, being a college student, I get it. I didn't have a ton of money. But, I highly recommend if you can find yourself a nice suit, a tie, or jackets, it'll give you the edge over somebody who comes unprepared. The person in front of you who interviewed before you, they might have showed up 5 to 10 minutes late, they didn't have a suit on, and maybe they smelled funny. I don't know.
That reminds me of two things. First of all, we have a Pinterest page, and it is free. You don't have to be an active user on Pinterest, but we have a Pinterest page that has lots of visual representations of what this panel has talked about, and it's a great way to check and make sure when you're talking about a suit, the suit is not wrinkled, the suit is not 3 sizes too big or 3 sizes too small.
Check your socks too.
Check your socks.
Right, socks are super
Very
important.
My 10th grade health teacher who started our career preparation said 3 things: polish your shoes, wear a watch, and bring questions. He said don't sit there like a dummy. I mean, he said at least show that he said, I don't care if you're interviewing at McDonald's. Do your research and ask questions and participate in the conversation. And so the other thing is, I really appreciate, Derek, your point. It does not take a lot of money. We had a student who worked in our office who would proudly walk in and say this entire outfit was $3. So make use of thrift stores, make use of Kohl's, of Target. This does not have to be, walking into Saks Fifth Avenue to buy a custom-made suit here. Do make sure it fits. And these are some of the hints we have on the Pinterest page, but I think it's really important to underscore, to your point, it's not about spending a ton of money if you don't have it, but just iron something. Make sure your shirt is tucked in. So those are some of the tips.
When you buy a suit coat or a new suit, there's typically an X on the back of it where the tab of your suit is, where it kind of breaks.
Together.
Yeah, where it's sewn together. Make sure you cut that.
Everybody's like looking at
I have provided, I've provided to many students at career fairs, hey, let me cut that for you. Yeah, I'm good. I hope so. Wouldn't that be embarrassing?
Worst panel.
Just,
Another interesting tip too, like if you're not comfortable wearing a suit or dressing up, it's good to maybe wear it before the event and practice and be comfortable and be confident in it, and don't maybe just put it on the day that you're going and rushing out the door.
And also know that it's a finite period of time that you're wearing it.
Yes.
You're not wearing it for the next 3 days in a row, right? It's
Hopefully
a couple
not.
hours. Right. Any questions I want to check in with our audience here. You have a question?
I want to know what is the best part of working at your particular jobs.
What is the best part of working at your particular organization?
I can start with that one.
Great.
Yeah, I think it's work-life balance. I think that's one of our 7 core values, is making sure that you have a strong professional career with advancement opportunities, but there's still your life outside of work, whether it be, seeing family, friends, and doing your passions outside of work, whether it be volunteering or, other activities. So definitely that core value work-life balance for me at PNC.
I'll go next. So at BDO, we thrive on flexibility, which goes hand in hand with work-life balance. we don't have your typical 9-to-5 jobs. And I speak from the professional standpoint of what I used to do, as well as my career now in campus recruiting is just wild hours and just getting everything done. I work from home, I work at a campus, I work at a Starbucks next to a campus. So that's what I love about it, and I just couldn't be happier with how I'm able to do everything my passions outside of work and as well as inside of work. I love to do charity work, and it's something we thrive in, so.
Well, I kind of mentioned before, I love the patient interaction and knowing that I am making a difference. And I also really enjoy my business partners. They are great. They are, my business partners are the individuals that hire the hiring managers, and we have just developed a really good relationship. And from that, they have really educated me on the type of candidate that works while I recruit for laboratory. And there's a lot I didn't know about labs. So they tell me technical things to screen for, but also some soft things to look for in individuals that are in the lab and things of that nature. So I've also really enjoyed learning about healthcare, even though I have a business degree, and I used to learn a lot about banking, which I'm not going to lie. Finances and healthcare are two really good things to learn about for me personally. So I don't want to move the direction of this conversation or your question, but one thing I did want to mention about professionalism is in terms of the interview process, typically the first step you're going to get to is a phone interview, or a lot of organizations, we are starting to go to video interviewing. Please make sure you keep in mind that you go to a quiet place and take that as very important step, because if you don't do well in that phone interview, you are not getting to that face-to-face. So keep that in mind and know that that is your first step and should be taken with all importance. And also, even when you're doing that video interviewing, think about your background. Again, also dress professionally in that as well. So again, don't need to deviate from your question, but I do want to share that.
Funny you mentioned that. Actually, one of my recruiters told me that because that's our process. Is if you apply, our recruiters will follow up with an email asking for your availability for a phone interview. And one of my recruiters just yesterday told me that one of the person that they had called for an interview answered the phone by just saying what. Not the best way to start. Again, it goes back to that first impression, but that reminded me of that. To your question. Like I said, I started in the tire industry, and I'll always be grateful for that. I mean, again, I talk about those fundamentals, the organization, the time management, the accountability, and I kind of built from there. But, at Ohio Guidestone, I've always liked talent acquisition, but the fact that, we're in the communities, making a difference, helping those folks sometimes that can't help themselves. There's something to be said for that, and I think I speak for the entire agency. I mean, there is a lot of really creative, intelligent people, especially on our clinical side. I mean, they're smarter than I am. And they could probably work elsewhere and maybe make more money. But they believe in the mission, they believe in the work that we do. And that's for all the departments, whether it's buildings and grounds or your school-based counselors, they all believe in what we're doing. And there's really something to be said for that. I think, again, it goes back to culture for us. And just a quick story. Just last week, actually, to go with your question, I was getting off and I was working a little bit late, which in nonprofit work is around 5 o'clock, and 5:30. And my wife texts me and she's like, hey, we need wipes, we need diapers. I ran out of this, and I was like, oh my gosh, this was the longest day ever. And so I had to go to the grocery store, and I'm sorry, this is a little long-winded, but I'm going to wrap it up here in a second. I had to stop at the grocery store, and the cashier stopped, and she saw my shirt, which I had forgotten that I had on because I was raging about buying all this stuff. She said, oh, you work at Ohio Guidestone, you actually helped my son out tremendously. He's been able to find employment, and he was able to get custody of his kids. And I mean, she meant it when she looked at me and said, thank you, I think that she thought I was a therapist. I didn't correct her. I just said, you're welcome. But again, for me, that's what it is. And I think a lot of the folks that I work with, they really believe in the mission, and it's great to see it in action, what we do. So.
For me, it's the fact that Medical Mutual invests in its employees, and not just the employees, the customers as well. We have a program called Mutual Appreciation, and it's a way for the...
I'm sorry, it's called what?
Mutual Appreciation. It's a way that the company advertises customers to employees. So I would only buy gas at one gas station because they're a customer. And I moved away from my dad's house and moved to mine, and I don't even have it next to my place, but I would still drive 2 miles out of my way to go to that gas station just because it's a customer and because I know it's something that the company cares about, invested back in the customers. And so that for me is huge. It's just unbelievable how, I mean, yes, if you go on our LinkedIn page or anywhere, it's there. It's huge, and it's something. It's a pet project of. It started from a pet project of the CEO and turned into something that everybody just loves, and everybody's invested in it. It's like, oh, this is a customer of the month. Okay, I'm going to go to this pizza place. I'm going to go to this. It's just amazing, and so for me, that's a good thing.
So kind of alignment from my values to the company values. I know that's a really big thing, and I won't go into details there. But so Westfield takes a view on we have to be there for our customers. We want to be there for our communities, so we have a whole team devoted to corporate responsibility, giving back in those areas that we're serving. And then third, we're a privately held organization, so we want to make sure that we're taking care of our employee population as well. So we can put time, effort, resources into that type of thing. So whether it be an intramural services within our corporate workout facility that sets up basketball games and volleyball games and golf events, that type of stuff, that's really cool to see. To the workplace transformation we're going through, where we just built a new 90,000 square foot building and we're renovating the entire office space. So it's pretty cool to see all three parties kind of taken care of there. And then lastly, I'd say, and maybe my fellow insurance industries representatives can relate as well, but we've come a long way in the insurance industry. It used to be this, I'm going to say it's stale, pale, and male. And I know I'm sitting up here as a white male, but I can promise you the industry has never been so focused on diversity and inclusion. And it's a really cool thing to watch companies put a lot of effort around those two words.
I'll piggyback off the diversity piece. Again, at Progressive, we have core values within our company. Obviously, we're a for-profit. We're in the business to make profit. That's one of our core values. It's also one of the core values is also golden rule. So treating others as you want to be treated. And as a member of the LGBTQ community, I love that Progressive has employee resource groups that support that. We support diversity. We put our money where our mouth is, and we really do bring folks in with different opinions, other than that one with stale, pale. I've never heard that. I love it.
Yeah.
Evidence is on both sides.
It's great, right? But we're not the stodgy insurance company that you've maybe heard about or have those preconceived notions. We're very forward thinking, and we need to be that way to build our customer base as it continue to grow in a very mature insurance industry, right? Like we have an organic growth that we have to continue to build on and build our customer base, right? And appeal to that customer base. So being at Progressive, it's a wonderful place to be. The culture at a company that you're working for is super, super important. So vet out your companies that you're interviewing with, make sure that you want to be there, and make sure that they align with some of the values that you have, and you'll be happy and you'll be successful.
Yes.
So for each of your organizations, how does your internal governance structure differ from your competitors, from anyone else? How do the individual policies and procedures separate you from the rest of the group?
I can start with that one.
Great.
Yeah, so I would say, PNC is definitely a very risk-averse bank. That's, one of our, primary objectives is to make sure we don't put our customers or employees at risks. So I would say what we have is a very mature 3 lines of defense, where basically you have a process, it's checked and checked again. And, for me, it's a great thing because I will say it makes sure employees, jobs aren't put at risk through unnecessary risk taking, and make sure our customer assets are safe. I will say one thing that you should look for when you're looking at a job is understanding what works for you. Because, if you have a very risk-averse, a very process, procedure-driven, play-by-the-book company, it's going to be harder to drive results and really execute on priorities. At the same time, though, you're going to make sure you don't move too quickly. But then, another person's personality might be more not progressive as a company, but a more modern approach of like an agile development life cycle, and that's probably going to be able to move quicker and maybe feel a little less bureaucratic.
I'm actually not going to ask for responses from everybody, only because of time, but maybe one or two others of you, if you have a different answer than that, to give to the student's question. Elizabeth?
I would say we're Ohio-based, and we hold that very dear. We only do business in Ohio, and so that for us is very important to keep investing back in the state and giving back to the communities. And that for me was one of the things when I interviewed for the first time. I said the reason why Medical Mutual kept ringing a bell in my head was because I would see their signs almost everywhere, supporting this, supporting that, supporting that. So yes, we're making money, but we're also giving back to the communities, and we really care about that. So for me, that's a big thing.
Yes.
So from a student perspective, if I'm a pre-med student and I find a job in other business, in like other, without healthcare, like other field, does it mean that I'm going away from my field that I should work in and I should get experience in that field? Or it's okay, it's good for me to get experience in it?
Well, I think it's great. There's a lot of for-profit companies out there that are looking for individuals with that really deep science knowledge. You can really, and then you can also see if you do want to, you can do the sciences there within that organization, but see how it works on the for-profit side. Obviously, I know more, if you're pre-medicine, you probably might go more on the not-for-profit side, possibly in healthcare, but I think it can really only just grow from there, and you can always take that knowledge and utilize it. I know, especially let's say you want to go and run your own practice or something of that nature down the road, and to have that business, maybe budgetary, finance knowledge. I went to college with someone that was a pre-med major, but also we had a dual major in business for that reason.
Are you talking about specifically while you're studying pre-med going to a completely different industry?
So when you get an opportunity to find a job
Yes.
with other business, I mean, not in healthcare.
Yes.
So
a progressive, for example.
Yeah, like progressive. So does it take you away from your medical field that you should stay in that field, or it's okay to go to another?
Andy, then.
Yeah, so I'll jump in and talk probably more from a general basis and then pass it over. So it's important to career path and have an idea of kind of career trajectory, not only with that company that you're starting with, but on a personal level too. I think you've got folks here in the career services that can talk through some of that stuff and have seen some of that stuff. So when you think about going into a company and say you start down the business side and ultimately you want to end up in the healthcare side, you have to weigh, if you start going down this business side and you've been doing insurance for 7, 8, 9, 10 years, and all of a sudden you want to get back into healthcare, you have no healthcare experiences. So if you think about maybe salary that you're in and experiences that you have all being on the insurance side, and then you want to jump over to healthcare, you may have to take a step back to then go forward. So just keep those things in mind. I take this from a finance major going down a finance path, shifting to HR and starting a progression through HR. I was calculating my risk as I was doing that to say if I ever wanted to jump back into something finance related, I'd probably have to go back because I only have 3 years of experience in that space to be able to then jump up. So keep those things in mind, but you got to weigh that personally and then have to look at that company and look at their progression.
Yeah, just very similar. Like, think about a mentor of mine actually looks at his career progression like 2 steps ahead, and he'll look at job opportunities on the job board at Progressive, and and thinks about how the choice he's going to make now is going to impact him for that next job or that next goal that he has. So use that decision tree, right? So if don't make a change for change's sake unless you want to, but make sure it's calculated. Make sure it's going to get you to that next step or that next goal, and if it does, then that's fantastic. So look at it from a calculated perspective.
Demi, you can stand up.
Hi, everybody. So one of the sets of information that we push to students here in Career Services is to know yourself. So could you speak to what it might take to know yourself and gain that confidence when you are networking and when you're looking for, a certain career path or you're exploring, as a college student, I have so many fears of making change and stepping out of my comfort zone, so I just want to know some advice on how to step out of my comfort zone.
I could speak to that one. Honestly, asking questions and trying different things that you might be nervous about doing, but it's still always a thought in your head, is going to help you. It's going to help you get to that point where you're going to be guided along to see, okay, this is what I want to do. That is not what I want to do. You're not really going to know if you don't want to. I mean, unless, like for me, pre-med, something I never wanted to do, right? So I'm never going to try anything like that. So you have those kind of instances and things that you don't want to do, but there's also stuff that's kind of like fluffy and up there, and it's like, oh, maybe. I mean, when I started my career in public accounting, going the CPA track, never thought I would end up in HR. But it was something that was always in my head that I assisted with while in my career, and when the opportunity presented itself, I took the risk to do it, and now that I know, it's something that I love to do. So I think everybody here will say, like, you have to get comfortable getting uncomfortable. And the earlier on that you start to do those types of things in your career, the better off it's going to make you. Similar to make mistakes, early on to, thrive later on and things like that. So it all goes hand in hand. But starting it right out of college or while in college and doing internships, different types of internships. For me specifically, I mean, I will tell students if they don't know if they want to do audit or tax within public accounting, like, try both. Just do both. You'll never know unless you do it. So always get comfortable getting uncomfortable.
There's Google. Read. A lot of careers, a lot of professions now have information online that you can read about. You can go on YouTube and watch videos about people talking about what they do, or even LinkedIn. People now put out information posts about what they do and what they do in that role and how they enjoy it or maybe do not enjoy it. Read about those things and look at it from a personal perspective. Looking at job descriptions, I like to read job descriptions just to see, oh, these things, would I want to do them? Is this something I would enjoy doing? And write them down. Keep a tab of it. Have a notebook everywhere and write down those things, like strengths and weaknesses, or to do or not to do. And as you're reading through these job descriptions, as you're reading through this post, as you're reading different books, look at yourself and try to think about it. Would I enjoy doing this? Would I not? And take stock of it. Keep looking at it. Keep reading that and go back and edit it. Keep going back, update it every time. And that's how you become self-aware. That's how you realize what you like to do and what you don't like to do. And in some cases, you have to try it to realize if you would like to do it, because it looks good on paper and it might not look good in action. So, read.
Is it easy to do that, or does it take time?
It takes time. Right? It takes time and devotion. You have to be really devoted to knowing yourself. If you don't care to know yourself, you just want to go through things and go through life. Hey, I do not. I like to understand things. I like to understand myself and the people around me and what I do. I have a natural curiosity. So,
and that's not a finite process, right?
It's not.
I mean, it is a constant, lifelong process. So as you're talking, I'm thinking about my friends in their 40s who are doing job searches, and it's the same answer, some self-reflection. What are you interested in? What do you care about? What have you read out there that's catching your attention? What don't you like? So it is an ongoing reflection process. Andy?
Really quickly, there's a book out there, Strengths Finders 2.0, that I may recommend. you look into, dive into. It'll give you your top 5 strengths. It'll give you your bottom 5, I'll call them opportunities of development. And give you a little bit more of that self-awareness thing. So not necessarily some of the things that were talked about here, but it just gives you a sense of, here's some areas that I know I play well in, because this is saying I'm playing well in, and here's some opportunities that I may have to develop. And spend time on those opportunities just as much as you play to your strengths.
I'm looking at John, just because your career path has been so interesting, nonsensical. How would you respond to that question?
I think you need to seek out feedback. It's great to really know yourself and understand what motivates you, but as a college student, maybe if you don't get the grade you want on a paper, ask the professor what you could have done differently. I mean, I've applied to a ton of jobs and gotten denied. Ask the recruiter or the hiring manager, what were they looking that maybe you didn't possess from, a skill or attribute perspective. But really, take every opportunity you can to take feedback, assess the feedback, and then determine what your next step should be. And I think that is something, I've not always done a great job of. Definitely an opportunity that I've tried to embrace, more recently. But I would say, there's definitely a perception that younger people don't take feedback well. So, try to break that down and, be willing to hear what's constructive and kind of pivot based off what you hear.
I have a personal story with that example that he shared, but I'll go after her.
Okay, Megan, and then
I'm thinking of myself when I was in your shoes and trying to figure out what I liked. And you know what? I relied a lot on the clubs that I was a part of. That was kind of my first exposure to something per se professional. I was part of an alumni organization, and I also did residence work. And I really liked engaging with individuals. I was like the social chair in my residence hall and things of that nature. And from that, I actually ended up helping individuals. We ended up talking about what we like to do and doing things together and social events. And I'm like, okay, so I like, people say, oh, HR is like a people person's job. Not, it is, but that's when I decided I wanted to really interact with individuals on a one-on-one basis. Those interactions those experiences showed me that I wanted one-on-one. So when you're looking introspectively, look at the experiences that you have right now, or even, church groups or anything like that. You've got some good basis of knowledge. You might not feel like, I know I didn't feel like I did, but looking back, I know I did in college, and I utilized that looking back.
You already have material.
Yeah, you do.
To reference.
Have confidence in yourself. You've got it.
Elizabeth?
So, about feedback. I interviewed for a role that I really, really wanted, and I really, really wanted that role, but I did not get it. And I reached out after the interview process and asked for feedback from the interviewer, and he sent me an email and said, this is what you could have done differently. You came in looking too serious. We know you outside of this, and you didn't smile that much. You were nervous, and it showed, and you just did not come across as personable, and we really needed somebody personable in that role. And so when I told my mentor, she gave me an assignment to talk to someone I did not know for a week. And I had to report back to her, and she said, just strike up a conversation with somebody random in the elevator, anywhere, on the street, anywhere, and come back and tell me how that went. And so that was really interesting, because I would walk up to people and say, hi, Dr. This, and it's like, okay, do I know you? And
what did you learn from that experience?
To be more open, to not be afraid to show your real personality. They don't expect somebody who's just going to come in and sit like this and talk like this. Show your personality, show who you are, and let them get to know you as well. And that was really helpful for me, because I took that to the next interview and I got the job.
As you're talking, I'm looking at the banner that we have there, stand out, know the power of your own story. To your point, one's personality and experience is why you will be hired. If you can differentiate yourself from the 28 other applicants and the 20 other interviews that they're giving precisely by being yourself. Other questions? Ben, and then we'll come to you, please.
Hi, so I was wondering, other than, show up on time, be personable, things like that, what are the things that, say, would help you differentiate two candidates who have very similar qualifications and are both generally okay? How would you choose between one or the other?
for who to hire? John?
Providing examples when you answer your questions. So if you're being asked, what skills, do you bring to the table if they're, rattling off, like how can your skills transfer this role? Say how you were able to achieve or demonstrate that skill in your real life. Don't just speak generally, but provide direct examples of where you executed on the skill they're asking you about.
And I would leverage that too, right? Because you're helping the interviewer bridge that gap on your experience and your success in the job, ultimately, right? And what I find sometimes when I interview candidates is they come in and they sell themselves short on the experience that they have, right? So they might say, well, I only work at Chipotle, I only do this. But that's you're selling yourself short. You have great experience, you're learning lots of valuable life lessons, work ethic, leadership qualities. You could relate those to the job you're applying for. And a lot of times when you're coming out of school, we don't expect you to have, so I recruit for accounting predominantly from Cleveland State, we don't expect you to have accounting experience at this point. We want you to have learning agility, leadership, communication skills, right? So thinking about how you can bring those experiences in and selling them to the interviewer, essentially, and selling your future success, and then coming in and delivering, of course.
Quick thing I want to say, I want to get to your question. I'm also aware that we're close to 12:30, but I'm also willing to take a few more questions if there are some burning desires in the room and you really want to ask some questions. We just have such a rich, wonderful panel here, and when you need to leave, please do. I'm going to use this opportunity to make a plug about cover letters. I just read a cover letter that is single-spaced and was a page and a half, and I felt as though I was in a therapy session with this candidate. I mean, she was going on and on about how tears came to her eyes when she saw the job description because it meant so much to her and so on. And I cannot underscore the be explicit, give specific examples to how you meet the criteria of the position, and get to that in like 3 or 4 bullet points, and then stop talking.
Yeah.
So I just cannot underscore that explicit, specific examples. And again, it doesn't have to be A to A or B to B, but you can give at a high level, again, these skills that transcend industry or that transcend major. When have you provided customer service? When have you managed a project? When have you demonstrated your ability to manage conflict, right? And speak to those with specific ways that you meet the job description. So I think it's really an opportunity to say your cover letter should be 1 page, intro paragraph, 3 bullets, exact, explicit criteria, how you meet it, and then a closing paragraph, and then be done. Question?
Okay, so this is kind of a threefold question. Feel free to answer any part of it that you like.
Could you stand up?
Sure. So as hiring managers, is there ever an ideal candidate for a position who checks all the boxes? Is that really what you're looking for? As people who hold jobs, do you think that you check all of the boxes for the job that you hold right now?
We can answer that.
Okay, our bosses aren't here, right? Right. That's good.
No performance evaluation.
Yeah, no performance. Great.
And then how should we put ourselves into those boxes while showing that we're individuals?
Great questions. Just considering time, do you want to take a stab at this one?
Like I said, any part of the question, all or none.
So,
We can come back to it.
this is going to get existential, is that?
We're
So
with you.
don't ever jump into a situation trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. So if it feels that way as you're walking into this, I'll start with company, and then I'll go to the position itself, to where you feel like you have to morph into something just to fit the role. I'm going to be the person to say, probably pivot and switch and look for something else. That's where I'll start that conversation. As you start going through the job descriptions, you're going to find that a lot of employers will put the most important things towards the top of their job description. Okay, we have these 12 desired qualifications for the position. I promise you the top 1, 2, 3, 4 are probably the ones that you're going to be asked the most questions about or have the most energy in the conversation around. Not that these other things aren't important, but that's where I would start in saying, making sure that you're aligned to those positions. I can tell you as a person in my role, coming from a finance background, underwriting background, being in HR right now, there's a lot of opportunity that I have to get better in this space. And that's the thing that I would encourage you to look for, a company that's willing to say, we're going to support you in going out and doing those things. I'll pass it on at that point. So I know maybe that answered some of your question, but be very careful trying to jump into a position where you're feeling like you're going to have to change your personality or be somebody that you don't want to be in that role, because you're going to get into it and be looking for that next opportunity as fast as you can.
Who'd like to take that next?
Sharon.
Olivia and then Hillary.
To add on to that, I think the second part of your question was like, do we fit the qualifications for our role? I think for me specifically, for my senior campus recruiting position, like the first line on the requirements was like 5 years of HR experience, which I absolutely don't have. So there are unique instances, whereas, those bullet points of the items that you should know are things that you should have relative experience around, but, use it as your opportunity to tell that recruiter or tell that HR person why you would be good at doing those things, or how you completely learned, or what experience you do have that can assist you in applying those requirements in the job itself, I think would be the right way to look at it. For me, if I'm looking at a candidate and they check all the boxes, they have a 4.0, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, I mean, I'm also like, okay, this is you on paper, what do you do off of paper? I want to know you. I want to know, what are you involved in? Are you working while you're going to school? What's your background like? So it's a full combination of things, and it's not just your resume. And I also want to add a little piece on the cover letter, just because you brought it up, and I think every industry and every HR professional here is different. For me personally, I don't require a cover letter. My firm doesn't, all of the recruiters don't. I probably won't read it. I want your cover letter now has turned into a career focus at the top of your resume, a one-liner bulleting exactly what you're looking for, and then that's what I can read to then have a conversation with you. Okay, now tell me why. Tell me why you want this position. Tell me why you're so 100% need to have this role with us. So I just want to add that.
Thank you for your, I know we're close on time, but just a couple of things. So, to leverage a little bit, you want to make sure you're running toward a good opportunity and you're not forcing yourself into something that you're not going to be happy with, right? That's always super important. And for interviews, I've prepped for, like on the other side of the table, thinking about what those job qualifications are and doing like a one-pager on like why you, like what does your experience provide that makes you the best candidate for the job. Because when we go into an interview, we're the best candidate for the job, right? We go in, you have to have that confidence, you have to want it, and you have to portray that. And that one pager kind of helps you, or helps me anyway, organize your thoughts. You can share it with the interviewer when you're done. And it helps you kind of do a little soul searching too to see where your blind spots are, where your gaps are. Does this position make sense? And as you're going through that process, because it's a challenging process, and it's hard, and you want to make sure you're prepped for it, and that's helped me in the past.
So I know we're at time for this portion, but I do want to make sure that we have room for everybody. Are there any other burning desire questions? Yes?
I just have a really quick question for Hillary.
Okay.
I've noticed that you use the term learning agility a lot throughout your answers. Could you tell me more about what that means exactly and
Sure.
why it's so important?
Yeah, absolutely. Great. I'm glad you picked up on that, because I think that's, again, at Progressive, at other companies, that's really going to help you be successful. So it's a combination of, are you able to move into areas of ambiguity, of uncomfort, maybe new areas, and learn, be successful, and initiate action, essentially. And in that whole process, have some failings, have some learnings, and be stronger as a result of it, and then be able to, to be able to articulate that as you interview and go through next steps. I heard John talk about it too, but agile is a big focus right now with new product distribution that we'll have with vendor implementations or certain areas. And we want to make sure that we have our teams like implementing and elevating early so that we learn things early and we can correct on the fly and being able to be comfortable in that environment where you don't know everything going in. It's vital to success, and it's aligned to success in the workplace because you want to constantly be changing and you want to be in environments that are constantly changing and challenging you to change. So yeah, really good question.
Thank you for also using that term. Does anyone else want to add to what learning agile might be for you?
Health insurance is completely changed in the last 4 or 5 years, and it's changing almost every year. So that means you have to learn new procedures, you have to learn perhaps new tools, and you need to be able to speak to picking up new skills as quick as possible, or at least keep the interest in that. If there's going to be change, are you going to be receptive of it, or are you going to shy away from it and be that Debbie Downer that would just say, no, I don't want to do that, and I'm not going to learn it, I'm just going to be uninterested. So you have to show that you're willing to learn and that you're willing to grow regardless of what role it is. So you won't check that box, but you're willing to check that box.
Yeah, Elizabeth said the appetite to learn, and so there's moments in your career where you'll understand that you're in a learning environment, right? So there's a formal training class that you're going to, there's something that you're sitting down and learning from somebody else, but there are so many moments where you're asking questions and diving a little bit deeper to make sure that you have that understanding. You can show those types of continuous learning or appetite for learning as you're sitting in an interview, and it's not asking every single question, can you dive deeper into what you mean by it? That's not it, but there are ways you can go about doing it, and we can talk about those offline.
Last words for the students before we send you into your offices. What is something you want them to take away, or what are you taking away? What does this make you think of as you're leaving the room? John?
I would say look for development programs. I know a lot of companies have created in the past decade, entry-level roles that give you exposure across different areas of the business, and you'll, be with a peer group of recent, college grads as well, and it's a really good way to get your foot in the door at a company and also be on expedited career development tracks. So if there's a company you're looking for, there's a good chance they'll have a development program, and definitely I would say, try to find those and apply.
Thank you.
I have a question that I feel like would help everybody.
Go for it.
I just wanted to ask you guys, for instance, Mr. Carver, you said that, if the shape is a square, don't try to fit it in a circle. So for me, it feels like you do what you feel is more comfortable for you. And that's, everyone's preference. But she says she likes to, kind of push the boundaries a little bit and do things that make you feel a little more comfortable. So I just wanted to ask you guys, what makes you uncomfortable the most? How do you deal with it?
Wow, well, that's a great closing question. So, we'll just make sure everybody has a chance to answer, but Elizabeth, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say, what makes me most uncomfortable is someone questioning my work, right? If they're basically saying, this is what you delivered, I don't agree with it, I think it's wrong, defending yourself or admitting when you're wrong. And I think, that's always important, is always admit if you make a mistake, go to your manager right away, but also, if you believe in what you're selling, whether it be, on a sales job or just in your internal work environment, stick up for yourself.
For me personally, what makes me the most uncomfortable is not knowing something. I'm extremely, I feel like, analytical in the way that I think, and I don't like going into situations unprepared or not knowing what the job entails, and that's why I made my career switch, and it's been very scary. Everything that I do is new. This is new. But that's what makes me uncomfortable, and those are the things that help me thrive and, help me, further my career.
From the HR side, there's kind of, maybe some people define it as two sides. Sometimes it's, there's recruiting, training, things like that, but I see a lot of the recruitment side and then the HR, what they call kind of generalists, dealing with those more difficult situations, maybe unfortunately terminating an employee or things of that nature. And I recognize that that is not my favorite thing. I'm gotten more comfortable on the coaching and delivering those negative messages, but I've been doing it for a long time, and I sit down and I will script out that call because it is not my comfort level. But that's what I've done to overcome that, is the scripting, speaking with my peers who are in the HR bucket, and we do it together, and I'm okay with that.
I think, again, to piggyback what you said, just from the HR perspective, having those difficult conversations that we have to have in talent acquisition with the hiring team. Just recently we had someone and my team had presented maybe 3 or 4 candidates, and this individual was not hiring any of them. So we looked at maybe how the supervisor was interviewing, what was their style like. Was it possible that maybe the candidates weren't walking away feeling really good about that opportunity? I had to go for some direction from my HR director to talk about how to have this conversation of, I know you've been here 20 plus years and you've always interviewed a certain way, we want you to try it this way. And for me, that's really challenging, to talk to someone who has a strong personality, who's very comfortable in their role, they're comfortable doing things their way, in telling them, your way's not working, you need to try it this way. And that's going to be a part of any role you're going to be in, is having difficult conversations, whether it's a coworker, supervisor, or someone else within the organization.
For me, what makes me uncomfortable is making a mistake and having somebody bring it back. Because, again, I work in a customer-facing role, and so I have to double-check because if there's an error in what I've sent out, it means they would question everything that I've sent out, and it might just be a typo, but then they would think maybe the data that I sent to them is wrong, and then I would have to redo it. So it makes me uncomfortable making mistakes because I know it puts a question mark on my integrity or the integrity of the work that I produced.
And so how do you deal with that?
Oh, I double check and triple check. And so in my previous role, I was a project coordinator, so I established processes, and I have someone who QAs. Every work has to be peer reviewed before it goes out, peer reviewed and manager reviewed. And so there's no room for mistakes. And so if it comes back, I know that person did not read it right. There's no mistake on it.
A lot of things make me uncomfortable.
I'm going to be honest with you. I just want to make you feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
Saying that it was hard for me to even come here today.
I was just going to say, so silence is a thing that makes me very uncomfortable. But I can tell you, when I started my career at Westfield in the more analytical role, we would be asked direct questions, and you're put on the spot at that moment of time. And I am more of that personality that, okay, I need to be that sponge that soaks it up, processes it, and then provide my response, to provide my answer. I can promise you that it is 100% okay to say, right now in this moment, I don't have that answer for you. Let me take a little bit of time to think about it and get back to you. And so what my leader at that time recognized is that, hey, if I provide Andy a little bit of guidance of, I need to give him an hour to sit through and respond to it, I noticed as our relationship was going along, he would do that more and more and say, hey, I need these 3 things answered. Can you get back to me in 2-3 hours? And so they start picking up on some of that stuff. And then secondly, these types of engagements. I'm an introvert at heart. When I started, again, more technical mind, I was not the one to want to command a room or command attention. As you go through and do this for 8-9 years, you start to get more comfortable in that space. But I can't tell you the number of paper clips that I have destroyed in my pocket as I was presenting and as I was up in front of these groups. You'll notice I've got a pen in front of me. I'm typically messing around with a pen or playing with my coffee. Those things are on purpose, and they're to keep me distracted from being in front of an audience like this. So the fact that you said you're a little bit nervous about being here, 100% okay, because I have butterflies walking in here still 8 years later. It means you want to do well at something.
Well, I think I relate to you a little bit here, and I just want to let you know, one of the things that I do that helps me kind of cope is I realize no matter what I say, whatever the answer is, there's always going to be negative, no matter what.
Yeah.
You can be the most positive as you can be. There's always going to be a negative. And I don't know, maybe that'll help you, because I kind of relate to what you're saying. So I don't know, maybe that'll help you.
Cool, appreciate that. Want feedback whenever I can get it. Tips, tricks, and hints. Thank you, sir.
I know, right? I know, I like Andy, I'm very much an assessor, so I do need time to process questions as well. And I think he made a really good point of having the conversation, or being able to have the discussion with his boss to help their relationship be better and help him be more impactful. I think that's really important, or else it's not going to be a good relationship. So having that self-awareness, understanding where you operate best, and trying to get to that point is really, really important. It's going to help you be happy. It's going to help you be successful. And totally an introvert who forces herself to be an extrovert throughout the day, right? And it's okay to have those emotions for sure. It's how do you take them and do something with them and take action as a result, right? Kind of holding on to them. But back to the question more along the lines of like what makes us uncomfortable. Me, a lot of things, right? But coming into a project manager role, I was responsible for leading lots of very technical team members that I had no knowledge of what they did. They could tell me they're making widgets, and I'm cool with that as long as we hit certain deadlines, right? But being comfortable in that leadership role and helping guide them in a way that I can, not necessarily being able to code and develop what they were doing, not being a contributor, an individual contributor, but giving them support and identifying where that support could be needed that I could provide. So giving them tools or resources or cross-training. So how can I impact them in a positive way in my leadership role, even though I can't really do their job? And then being able to lean on my coworkers and colleagues and mentors for support throughout that effort and any of the projects I lead. So that's really important. There's always help. There's always somebody who can help you, and it's likely most people are feeling the same way that you are. I think that kind of helps.
Thank you so much. Can we get... I have to get them moving into the next section, but you can follow up with anybody that you want to in this next part. I'm sorry?
I have to ask all of them, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Sorry, I didn't ask this before because I thought it would be a question. So I'm from Afghanistan. It's been 3 years I'm here. I came here as an immigrant, and I started my school right away. So it's been 3 years. And last week, I created a limited liability company, which my aim is to import saffron from Afghanistan. Saffron is the spice you all may know, which is very expensive. And I'm very optimistic about it. It's very important, and I see it as a golden opportunity. And I know all successful employers that you can tell me, like, as someone that I'm new here, just like relatively new, 3 years to the United States. So I don't know how to find target customers and who to go to and how to make business relations. So that's very important for me in any kind of help. And I'm sure you can help me. You can tell me how to do it.
So here's what's going to happen, because I do have to skip. I'm glad you asked the question. Now all of them can think about it. Each of these employers are going to go in this direction. They each have their own individual office. It's marked. We have clipboards because we have to take sign-ins for whomever you'd like to follow up with. Unfortunately, Andy's got to take off, but everyone else is here until 2 o'clock. So what's going to happen is they're going to go into their individual offices. We have clipboards to sign up if you'd like to speak with PNC, and then Progressive, and then University Hospitals. You are welcome to sign up, and then you can have some one-on-one time with these employers. It's not going to be much more than 5 or 10 minutes at most. Be sure to ask for their business cards and to stay in touch if they're willing to stay in touch with you to follow up with any other specific questions. Okay? Okay? Thank you very much for coming, panel, thank you.